Hi, welcome to the channel. This is day 2 of preparing for mains, how to approach studying and make decisions. So, yesterday I asked you guys to do a thorough SWOT analysis of your strengths and weaknesses, things that you find easy or subjects that you find hard, and then how to prepare for it. What we are going to start today with is social justice and Indian society. The reason being that I was most unfamiliar with this topic when I began my mains preparation, so I found it a bit tough. Secondly, as I've explained yesterday, this is one of the most important topics that you can use in every aspect of the exam. And it is, in my consideration, one of the most data heavy also. So the faster you can learn this, the more you can utilize this, utilize it more effectively, and learn more facts. Now, what the aim of this video will be: how are you going to study, and how much time do you dedicate to that studying? So, according to me, the optimum time division is 60% of your time currently should go to your optional and 40% should go to GS and to roughly reading newspaper. When I mean 40-60, I am roughly saying 4 hours for your GS preparation and 6 hours for your law optional, for me law optional, but your optional preparation. I know in the beginning, even 8 hours will be tough, but if you have been in the habit of prelims, you were already going for 12 or 14 hours. So 10 is doable, 8 is possible. Now, as I said, we will be focusing on society, so social justice. Now, as I've said more last time also, these topics get repeated. If you see here, the topic of poverty, the topic of population, development, these are repeated when it comes to GS. Vulnerable groups and women are more or less the same issues. Inclusive group means the same thing. Similarly for development and employment. So these topics are interconnected, and once you've mastered it, you can use them a lot. Now, the aim is on how to cover this subject with 4 hours dedication daily within the next 7 to 8 days. That's it. That's all you require to cover roughly 150 to 200 marks of the paper. I'm going to show you the approach of how to do it, and the rest, whatever advice you like, you can adopt according to your needs. Now, what we are planning: in every session of 4 hours, your day is to be divided into two parts. 2 hours of reading, 2 hours of revision. If you finish your goal before that, you're free to do other things. This focus should be target oriented, not time oriented. If you finish your target early, feel free to do other things or just relax. This way you will not be burnt out within the first month of the exam. Now, how I'm going to do it is, first thing you need to do is divide your subject. Divide in what sense? So is let's see, these are the topics for the syllabus for social justice society. You will see there are 10 topics in society, 4 in social justice, and for now I'm ignoring economics, but that will be covered indirectly. And I'm using some of the old books that are lying around. You can use any. This is not that you have to use this one only. If we say their average reading time for a page is 5 minutes per page, that means you will take to cover these 15 pages 75 minutes. This way, divide your whole topic, write down how much time it will take for each topic, and pick topics which roughly coordinates to 1 to 1 hour 30 minutes to finish to read. So for example, if I'm starting, this is 75 minutes and this is 35 minutes, and poverty is 38 to 43 to roughly 5 pages. This is also 35 minutes. I would prefer to finish these two topics together, this topic singularly, this topic singularly, and I will pick like this. What this will allow me is to batch them in the most efficient way possible. Don't go topic wise, go with time wise, so that you can batch them and be more prepared for how to approach these things. Now, once you batch them, you have roughly every day you have 2 hours to take any topic, and the topic is already decided. Now, how are you going to study that topic? I will explain it briefly now. And last thing, do not touch current affairs right now. I know you think that UPSC is made or broken by current affairs, but that is not the case. The most important thing, especially in main, is your ability to write answers. Address that answer properly and give substantiation for your answer. None of this requires current affairs. Where current affairs get useful is some of the news that have been very, very big in news and can be a possible question. That can be taken at a later date, especially if you're reading a newspaper, you are anyways familiar with the news items. So do not touch current affairs while preparing the topic right now. Now, how will you approach this? I have said 5 minutes per page, but what? So, again, you can take any coaching material. This is not the case. This is the one I had lying around, so I'm using it. Let's say you're taking the topic of women. I have said 5 minutes per page. So I've said 5 minutes per page, but what does that translate into? How do you read a topic? Things like that. See, a lot of topics in Indian society, in social justice, they are direct. What I mean by direct is these are either topics that you are familiar with. For example, women, most of the things you're already familiar with, or population or poverty, etc. You are already familiar with prelims. Secondly, apart from a basic conceptual understanding, you usually also have a familiarity with the general issues because these are such interconnected and never ending topics. What that means is that when you're reading this part, these can be done very fast. Except for a few topics, for example, for me, that was Indian society and diversity. I was really unfamiliar with, and I found the question also complicated. So I took my time reading this topic. Whereas for women, I was very fast. Population took a bit of time. Poverty, again, very fast. So, step 1, you read through the topic. Let's go to the women one. Reading through the topic means just reading, no highlighting, nothing. Just read through the topic, see if you understand it. For example, I'm reading economic survey noted that India has. There is nothing to understand here. There is just a data that India has a score of 0.409. Maybe you don't know what's the gender inequality index, although I think most people who prepared seriously for prelims already are familiar with it. But that's about the only thing. You know what's an economic survey, you know it's a data point, and you know it's published by these people. There's nothing to understand here. Just fastly read through this. As I said, 5 minutes per page, maybe less, maybe more, depending on your speed. Just finish the topic. Once you finish the topic, now the actual work starts. We have covered how to read, we have covered read. Now step 2. Now this is where the actual work starts. Go to the PYQ of the topic. I've just taken the GS1. You can also see if there are any questions in GS2 and other things as I've said. And then what you're going to do is verbally write. Verbally try to answer the question. Just don't write, just think about the answer. For example, let's take an easy one. Examine the role of gig economy in the process of empowerment of women in India. You just read this topic. Empowerment is one of the most direct questions that you can get, and empowerment, whatever you've read, try to think it through. If you're trying to answer, how will you answer? Examine the role of gig economy. That means you need to know what's gig economy. You know what role it is playing. What do you mean by role in empowerment? Is it giving them economic power? Is it giving them political power? Is it allowing them to be more liberal socially? What are the facets in which it is empowered? Think about the points you've just read. Can you remember any? If you can, good. If you can't, not a problem. You will slowly. So these are the easy questions. There are also sometimes hard questions. For example, this question. Explain why suicide among young women is increasing in Indian society. Whatever have you read in the material, I don't think usually you will get a lot of that data point for such things or reasoning for such things. Maybe it was in the news a lot and you do, but if I was giving this paper, this question will shock me. So what can you write? In these questions, think about it. Suicide. Why does a person commit suicide? They are sad or having issues with something. Issues. Nice. They have to be severe issues for a person to commit suicide. Think again, what are the issues faced by women in society which can lead them to commit suicide? Some kind of harassment at workplace or at home. This could be marital rape. We've just read that. Harassment in workplace. You should be familiar with Prevention of Harassment at Workplace Act. So there is that. There is marital rape. could be some other things, could be that they are having economic issues, they don't have liberalization, parents are not allowing to study, maybe there is a dowry issue. Again, you just came up with issues. So the question asked why suicide among women is increasing. What you just come up with a list of issues. What will you do? You will write all the issues. You will substantiate them with the data points you just read. 50% of the answer is done. Most of the issues faced by women. Data points substantiate there. For example, let's say rape is increasing in the last decade. Done. 2 to 3 data point, maybe an instance. Maybe say that post Nirbhaya there has been an increased scrutiny on issues of such cases. Maybe quote any rape case or something that you know about. Most of the point done, leading to suicide. Obviously, you will come up with solutions, which is also something that is already done in the sheet. Government initiatives. See, Posh Act, Vishaka Act. You just read this. Female feticide, Posh harassment at workplace. So these things you just read, and suddenly you can answer them in your question. Okay, so if you are taking, let's say, 5 minutes to answer each, again, this is a rough way to do it. Do not write the answers, just think about how you will answer. What this will allow you to do is filter through how to answer, how to take up the data. Now we will go back to this. So let's say this was 75 minutes and there were only 5 questions in this particular PYQs. Maybe there are 10, 5 minutes per question, 50 minutes. 2 hours done. Now let's go to how to read through it. Now if you will see, most of this data you don't need. For example, fundamental rights. You already know most of this from polity. If you think you don't, you can always write them, but I don't think. This you can write. Why? Because these are specifically to be used for the women solutions, so you can write these. It could be that you are asked to explain these acts, so the names can be helpful. This can be an important data point that you could have used repeatedly. Domestic violence. See, the last question that we discussed. This could be that we could have used that despite a major workthroughs, some states still are showing increased level of domestic violence. Okay, so what you're going to do is, now you're going to read through them of what you could have written and just highlight things. I would suggest now a very good use of technology that I find while revising. When you highlight, don't highlight everything. For example, let's go back to this domestic violence one or the economic survey one. I'm currently using an iPad. A lot of laptops also provide the same. This is called a tape. What you do is, you cover this. So now when you are reading through this again, that this was a data point you think was important, and this was India is placed 135 in World Economic Forums. Let's say this report, you need the name of index. Okay, you didn't find this data point to be important, you didn't find this to be important, you like this line but not enough. Let's say you don't like this quote, you have got it out, this is what you think is important, so you will tape it again. For dowry there is an act, for a woman. Now this is what you do for the next half an hour. Just read through it again and mark out. For example, most of this is just something you read. You don't need most of this data. A lot of these stories you already know. Otherwise, if you read through the questions, you will see you don't need most of these things. So what you can do is, if you think something is important, you can always highlight it. Let's say this gargan method. Just okay. You have seen this. You cut it out. Cut it out. Okay, you do like this for the whole thing. This can be used more honestly, but not here. You don't need it mostly. So in these also, cut it out. Okay, now what you do is, this is done. This is how you highlight it. So if you will see in crux, for example, on this page, you only needed to know 4 things. What is India's place in the World Economic Forum's gender gap report? What is India's gender inequality index? You can know either of these things. You'll see, write or revise this 1 to 2 times. You will realize you don't need both data points. You can just use one to highlight your facts. Why is suicide rising among women? Because India's place is 135th among 46 nations in the World Economic Forum. That's it. You don't even need to quote this one. but this you experience by revision and by doing the PYQs again and again, how you are going to use data. So on this page you only have 4 data points, 2 and okay, let's call it 3 only. What are the legislative safeguards to protect women? There are 3 acts, 4 acts, you can just name them. Done. What is India's ranking in gender gap index? And what is India's score? Done. Literally from a whole page you only got 3 points. That's it. This is how you mark the whole chapter. Once you are done, the next day when you revise, now this is day 1. As I said, you write for this was women, so this will be 75 minutes of reading. There was only 5 questions, so 25 minutes of questions. 30 minutes I think you will need to read again. If you think you need more, you can always do 60. You're done for the day, 2 hours done. Next day what you will do is 30 to 40 minutes you will revise. How? Just those points that you marked. You open this again, you see the tape, gender gap index. Done. As soon as the question comes here again, so half the struggle for you is gone. This is how you are going to go on every day. Every day you take 2 hours to read a new topic and 2 hours to revise whatever you have read till date. So by the end of 7 days you have revised the topic 7 to 8 times already. And this is how you're going to go through the whole society subject. Once you're finished with this, ideally it should take you 7 to 8 days, but I have been an aspirant and I can tell you right now it is never how ideally functions, so I'm giving it 10 days. This should be our hard limit. 10 days, be finished with whatever you can. Okay? At the end of the 10 days is when you actually start making your first iteration of notes. Till now, whatever you have done is digital. Here I will give you one tip. When you are reading these, for example this, write it out. This is how you do your writing practice and speed practice. For example, I had done this digitally. This was the question. Answer you should write down, then check. This way you can have practice of both writing, and that way it will get into your mind more. Okay, but do not make notes right now. After you have finished the chapter, the whole subject of society and social justice, after that, only after that, you will make the first iteration of your notes. That can be on a page or on soft copy, your choice. I would suggest soft copy because changes are still to come. A Word document works. Mine looked like this. I'll show you. Called it last minute revision notes only. This is my notes for Indian society, the first chapter. Communism, nationalism, secularism, yeah, characteristics of Indian society. If you will see, as I said, this was a topic that I found to have a lot of questions and subtopics, so I made sure that I had data for all of them. This was not my final notes though. My final notes were half the length of this, but this is what I have, so I'm showing you. Now I showed you a quote that I didn't like. You can always Google and find more quotes or copy from here, whatever you like. I will add this in the comments. This page, more or less, after your third or fourth revision, becomes your reference point to revise. You don't need, once you have your first iteration and second iteration, you don't need this to revise. You don't need anything else to revise. You just open this. For example, let's see, not even 20 minutes to revise this, and this is all I need to answer all the questions. This comes after repeated revisions and understanding the topic. Now, going back to the PYQs, once you have done the 10 days of revision, do the PYQs of that subject whole so that you have a better understanding of what you are missing and not. Now comes the current affairs part. I used mains 365. You can use this inside forum anybody's. Point is, when you go through the mains 365, what you do is the same thing. Read through that 5 minutes per page. 1 second. 5 minutes per page. Because you already have a clarity, just mark whatever you think is important or not covered by your revision note. Same as we did here. Just mark, just highlight, and then portion that you think you can, this is it. In the Mason 365, you also do this, and from that, whatever you thought was important, add to your revision notes. once again. Add to your revision notes. That's it. I would suggest do this after you have done a couple of revisions and practice PYQs, because then you have a way better idea of what you need as a value addition in your answers. If you do it very much in the beginning, what you will do is you will add everything in the revision notes and try to revise everything. But once you have done PYQs and written a couple of question papers, what you realize is for value addition, you actually need very limited things. As I showed you in the gender gap report, you only need the rank or our, what is that called, marks or something. What was it called? Score. You never needed both the data points. So you have to prioritize these things accordingly. I will repeat it again. 10 days, you will finish Indian society, social justice, and some parts of GS3. The inequality in growth, etc. You will see it's overlapping. That's it, 10 days. After that, you will also not do current affairs. Revise for a couple of days more, do a couple of papers, and then you can go to the Vision 365. Anyways, that comes up in I think 1 month or 2 month delay. So till then, do this part. That's it. 10 days, 4 days every day, and your social justice part in society. Once again, in society and social justice is finished. This is for 4 hours per day. The rest of it, the 6 hours, has to go to your optional, because that is more scoring and that is where your true expertise lies. So this is it for today. I hope you liked it. Let me know if you wanted any more insights and if what else I can do. Now, as to the homework for tomorrow, this is the homework. Make blocks, 2-hour blocks, not 4-hour blocks, 2-hour blocks of subjects, subtopics, because 2 hours is a revision, and divide them. So for 10 days, you just do this. Write down whatever topic. For example, as I said, if I am doing this, I will club poverty, which is 35 minutes, urbanization, which is also roughly 30 to 40 minutes together, and maybe we can take one more topic, social empowerment, because I think it's small and it connects. And this is it. So this will be my 3 topic for a day. I will finish them in 2 hours, these blocks, and then the next 2 hours I will dedicate to revision only. So for tomorrow, this is homework 1. Second is complete 1 block. I will say, because this will take some time. The first is block, you can take smaller, so I would suggest start with the women one, since it's 75 minutes rather than the 120 minutes for the day that you have allotted. Secondly, as I said, women is a direct topic and most people are already familiar with it, whereas I found the first topic, especially that is salient features of Indian society and diversity of India, to be the most wide of it, so that takes time. Now, last thing I would like to add in this syllabus is something I missed, is the aspects of social justice. If you will see here, they've only written welfare schemes for the vulnerable section, but vulnerable sections are not defined. Okay, for each vulnerable sections, you need to know these things. What are the schemes, how they are performing, the mechanisms, laws, institutes and bodies constituted for the protection of these. So for every vulnerable section, you need to know these 5 things for everyone. So they've given you parameters of your syllabus, you need to work accordingly. Problem arises defining vulnerable. I would simply suggest PYQ is again your guide, and take up any coaching material. For example, this is a vision value-added material from the website. They've defined vulnerable sections: children, SC, ST, OBC. This is done. Differently abled persons, minorities, domestic workers is a new one. LGBTQI and women is already on vulnerable section that you've already covered. This is it. So homework for tomorrow, block and finish 1 block. Let me know if you were able to study this way, and I will talk tomorrow about the optional part and keep you updated on what